If you've ever walked your dog in the woods, you've probably had this heart-stopping moment. Your dog disappears into the brush and emerges carrying a dead, bloated squirrel that's been baking in the summer heat since last Thursday. It's green, it's covered in flies, and before you can even react, your dog has gulped it down, whole. You prepare yourself for a massive vet bill, but then nothing happens. The dog is fine, wags its tail, and goes on with its day. Meanwhile, if you ate that same piece of meat, you'd end up in the emergency room with severe food poisoning. So what's going on? How do animals eat rotten flesh that is literally swimming in lethal bacteria and walk it off like it was nothing? The answer isn't a single thing. It's a whole system, stacked layer on layer, built over millions of years of evolution. And it doesn't just apply to your dog. It applies to nature's ultimate cleanup crews, from wolves and hyenas to the absolute masters of the craft, vultures. Once you understand how it works, you'll never look at a decaying carcass the same way again. Before we get into the biology, let's clear something up, because the premise of the video is actually a little misleading, and intentionally so. Animals do get sick from rotten meat. In the wild, eating a highly contaminated or diseased carcass can and does kill animals. They get infections, they weaken, sometimes they die. The reason we don't think about this is simple. When an animal gets seriously ill, it hides. It crawls into the undergrowth, stays out of sight, and either recovers or doesn't. You never see it. So when you watch a hyena crush a week-old rib cage and walk away looking powerful, you're not seeing the full picture. You're seeing a survivor. The animals that ate from that same carcass and died are already gone. But, and this is the important part, animals do survive these putrid meals far, far more often than we would, and the reasons why are genuinely remarkable. The first line of defense is something that we share with animals, but in a very different strength: stomach acid. Your stomach produces acid to break down food and kill bacteria. On the pH scale, where lower means more acidic, human stomach acid typically sits between 1.5 and 3.5. That sounds pretty strong, but mammalian scavengers, like wolves and hyenas, consistently measure between pH 1 and pH 1.5. And if you look at vultures, the ultimate carrion eaters, their stomach acid drops to nearly zero. That's essentially battery acid. To put that in perspective, a vulture's stomach acid is strong enough to dissolve solid bone, metal, and feathers. More importantly, it acts as a brutal biological filter. It literally melts the DNA of deadly pathogens: anthrax, cholera, rabies, botulism. Toxins and bacteria that would instantly kill a human simply dissolve in this chemical firestorm. The stomach is essentially a kill chamber, a filter. And for these animals, that filter is running at a level of intensity that we can barely imagine. And there's another factor on top of that: speed. Carnivores and scavengers have relatively short, simple digestive tracts compared to many other animals. Food and everything in it moves through quickly. That matters because bacteria need time to colonize. They need to find a comfortable spot, attach to the gut lining, and multiply to cause trouble. In a human gut, food can sit around long enough for harmful bacteria to multiply and cause severe illness. In a wolf or a hyena, that window is much, much shorter. The system is built for rapid throughput. The bad bacteria are pushed out before they can even settle. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough: saliva. A scavenger's saliva isn't just water and enzymes for digestion. It's an active antimicrobial environment. It contains lysozyme, an enzyme that physically ruptures the cell walls of bacteria. Lactoferrin, a protein that binds to iron. Since bacteria need iron to survive, it essentially starves them. Peroxidase, another antibacterial enzyme, and immunoglobulins, which are antibodies doing active patrol duty in the mouth. So even before that decaying meat reaches the stomach, it's already being processed. Not perfectly, of course, but it's a real defensive layer. For social scavengers, like wolves or wild dogs, grooming and licking each other also helps spread these protective enzymes, reinforcing their shared defense.
Now we get to what is probably the most fascinating part of this whole story. Inside every animal's gut lives an enormous ecosystem of microorganisms, billions of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes that have evolved alongside that animal over its entire lifetime. This is called the microbiome. But in scavengers, this microbiome doesn't just tolerate toxic bacteria, it employs them. When scientists analyzed the gut of vultures, they found that their intestines are heavily populated by Clostridia and fusobacteria. In humans, these are the terrifying pathogens responsible for gas gangrene, tetanus, and botulism. But in the vulture, they function like a standing army. The vulture has evolved a symbiotic relationship with them. These bad bacteria help break down the tough, decaying proteins of the carcass, and in doing so, they crowd out other even more lethal pathogens. It's not just a defense system, it's a thriving, hostile ecosystem where only the toughest survive. This is also why a wild animal's gut is highly adapted to its specific diet, and why sudden exposure to a completely foreign pathogen is usually what causes trouble. It's built on a lifetime of exposure. And it's why you shouldn't let your pampered house pet, who has lived on sterilized kibble and filtered tap water, casually eat a decaying carcass in the woods. Their microbiome simply isn't primed for war. So far, we've talked mostly about birds and carnivores with savage stomach acid and fast digestive systems. But hyenas and Tasmanian devils, for instance, are mammals, and while they have strong stomach acid, they also face massive pathogen risks. So how do they fit into this? Mammalian scavengers rely on incredibly robust immune systems. Hyenas possess a specialized set of antibodies that can neutralize lethal doses of the botulism toxin, an anthrax bacteria. While a human immune system would be overwhelmed and trigger a fatal inflammatory response, a hyena's immune system detects the threat, deploys highly targeted antibodies, and neutralizes the toxins without damaging its own tissues. It's a completely different defense strategy from the vulture's battery acid bath, but it works. The scale and strength of their immune response acts as a biological fortress. So why can't we do any of this? Fair question, and the honest answer is we used to be somewhat better at it. For most of early human history, we were scavengers, following larger predators and eating what they left behind. But humans solved the rotten meat problem from a completely different direction. We tamed fire. We invented cooking. We externalized the sterilization process instead of evolving a gut that could handle severe contamination. We removed the pathogens before they ever reached our mouths. That worked extraordinarily well. Cooking food allowed us to absorb nutrients more efficiently, which fueled our evolutionary development. But the trade-off is that our bodies are now calibrated for cleanliness. Our stomach acid is milder, our digestive tracts are longer, and our microbiomes are far less battle-hardened. We optimized for a different kind of life, and that optimization is permanent. We didn't lose the ability to handle raw, decaying meat because we got weak. We redirected the effort. The vulture evolved a stomach that functions like battery acid. We built kitchens, different solutions to the same problem. So the next time your dog snaps up something questionable in the yard, or you watch a vulture tear into a carcass on the side of the road, remember what's actually happening. The saliva hits first, a chemical barrier armed with enzymes and antibodies, and whatever survives that drops into a stomach so acidic that it can dissolve bone and melt anthrax DNA. Anything still standing then enters a digestive tract moving fast enough to deny bacteria time to settle. And all of that sits on top of a lifetime of microbial exposure and a specialized immune system specifically tuned to handle biological warfare. It's not one defense, it's 5 defenses layered on top of each other, refined over millions of years of eating questionable things. Animals aren't immune to rotten meat, they're adapted to it. There's the difference. And that decaying carcass, from their perspective, genuinely not even a challenge.